All right. It's discussion time with Eric. Exoteric. Yeah. I think that's better. Oh, wait. The sun's moving. Yep, so it's time for a discussion with Eric. Ready to get entertained? Because I'm ready to entertain. My channel is for entertainment purposes. I act like a philosopher, but actually, I'm just a comedian doing like a really long-term skit, a satirical skit, like a lifelong satirical skit. I'm just playing a character right now, like kind of like an Alex Jones kind of character. My personality is actually completely different. I'm a real hardcore partier, and I just go to parties all the time. And I'm only pretending to be like have like a philosopher kind of personality, because I'm a funny guy. It's a joke. It's a skit. Well, anyway, story time. One day, I made the grave mistake of going onto the internet, going online to this thing called the internet. It's like the Wild West. I made the grave mistake of trying to have a normal discussion about normal things with normal people. But so basically, there are these people talking about pineal glands. You know, pineal gland people. You know, those people, the pineal gland people. And I was having a discussion with these people, and the thing that they say is that basically this is what they say: a pine cone is sacred geometry. Okay, that's the first thing they say. Then the second thing they say is that a pineal gland looks like a pine cone. All right? That's the second thing they say. And then the third thing they say is that because the number 1 and 2, because the pine cone is sacred geometry and the pineal gland looks like a pine cone, that means the pineal gland is special. It's sacred, and it plays some kind of a special spiritual role in your body. Somehow through your pineal gland, one is able to unlock some kind of special power, a supernatural power. That's what they say. Okay. All right. See, I have an open mind. I have an open mind. I like to have discussions with people. I like to ask people questions because I don't know everything. I want to ask people questions because obviously they know more than I do. So I want to learn. You know, if I'm full of it, I want to know if I'm full of it. So I try to learn and ask questions. That's what an open mind is. And so I'm also skeptical, though. And what skeptical means is that what it really means, it doesn't mean just critical. That's not what it is. Skeptical means that you put effort, some kind of effort forth to collect evidence. It's the scientific method. You try to collect evidence, and that evidence, it has the potential to corroborate your hypothesis or go against it, disprove it. But skepticism is the act of making an attempt, at least an attempt to find evidence. And those two things together are really good, having an open mind and skepticism. So, because I have an open mind and skepticism, I wanted to figure out if those three claims were true. And one of the things I asked them was, are you sure a pineal gland looks like a pine cone? Right? That's a reasonable question to ask. Are you sure that a pineal gland looks like a pine cone? And I wasn't very well received by asking that question. See, all I want is to figure out if a pineal gland looks like a pine cone, right? Isn't that reasonable? Okay, yeah. Let's say it's called a pineal gland, and your argument is that it was called a pineal gland because the person naming it was naming it after a pine cone. Okay, can you prove that? Also, if you prove that, can you also prove that they were naming it after a pine cone because it looked like a pine cone? Can you prove that? That's no one says any of those things. Really. But even if both of those things were true, it wouldn't be good enough for me because, what if the pineal gland still doesn't look like a pine cone? Wouldn't it be easier to just look at a picture of a pineal gland? For years now, I've been scouring the internet and asking everyone I can for some kind of a picture of a pineal gland, because I really want to know if a pineal gland looks like a pine cone. It would be really easy to prove, really easy to prove that a pineal gland looks like a pine cone. Because all you have to do is show someone a picture of a pineal gland, and the person will say, hey, that kind of looks like a pine cone. Not that difficult. The overwhelming response I get when I talk about this, when I ask these questions, hey, do you have a picture of a pineal gland? The overwhelming response I get is, number one, shut up, and number two, you are evil. Also, sometimes along with number two, the claim is that I am working for the devil, trying to deceive people into thinking that a pineal gland doesn't look like a pine cone. But it's not true. I really sincerely just want to see a picture of a pineal gland. I just want to know if a pineal gland looks like a pine cone. If you can get me a picture of a pineal gland and it looks like a pine cone, and I'll be like, hey, all right, a pineal gland looks like a pine cone. One time someone sent me a picture of it was kind of like a sketch, like drawn on a piece of paper, a sketch of a pineal gland. And even next to that sketch, they put a photograph of a pine cone. And they said, see, look at these two images and compare them. See how they look the same? And I looked at them, and and they didn't look the same. The sketch of the pineal gland was like, it looked more like a potato. Or there's not even like a potato. It was kind of, I don't know, maybe more egg-shaped. It was lumpy. It was kind of a little bit thicker on one side, and there were like these little wires attached to it. Or whatever. I couldn't. If it wasn't labeled pineal gland, I would have no idea what that was. Just some hand-drawn sketch. I don't know if it's real. I don't know if it's based on something that exists in reality. But damn, the sketch didn't even look like a pine cone. And I said, hey, you know, that sketch, it really doesn't look like a pine cone at all. And they said that I was evil and I worked for the devil. One person said, they said, well, maybe pineal glands don't look like pine cones anymore, but they used to. They used to look like pine cones. Back when they, before they started putting fluoride in the water. I mean, the fluoride in the water is a real thing. And it really does. It's scientifically proven that it fucks you up. But it's not scientifically proven that your pineal gland used to look like a pine cone, but now that you drank fluoridated water, it doesn't. So yeah, there's that. See, if you sincerely believe that a pineal gland looks like a pine cone, and yet you have never seen a pineal gland before in your life, then can I call you very dumb? Can I call you dumb? People who believe that and who have never ever seen a pineal gland in their life, can I call them dumb? Is that okay? Would that be mean? Or would that be an objectively true statement? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it actually turns out that a pineal gland does look like a pine cone. It doesn't matter. Because if you believe something and you've spent absolutely no effort at all to try and find a picture of a pineal gland, and you've never, ever seen a pineal gland in your life, doesn't matter if you're right. You're dumb. You're very dumb. That's an objectively true statement. So that's the main thing. A lot of these pineal gland people are very, very dumb. It's really sad. I don't want these pineal gland people to be very, very dumb. But, you know, I also want $1 million. So another one of their claims, the first claim is that the pine cone is representative of sacred geometry. And that's another thing. It doesn't really matter if you're right or not. If you can't construct an argument to explain why it's sacred geometry, if you use the term sacred geometry and you can't explain what you mean by that, doesn't matter if you're right, because you're dumb. In a way, I would actually agree with the first claim that a pine cone is representative of sacred geometry. And I think that I am probably one of the few people who can actually explain in detail why that would be true. And, I'll prove it right now by explaining myself. The geometry of a pine cone is seen in a lot of different places in nature, in certain spirals, like in space or in plants, or basically just the existence of spirals or whatever. It's because the geometry of a pine cone is basically a set of spirals going one way and a set of spirals going the other way, and it makes kind of like um, a flower kind of pattern, and so flowers are basically similar construction. It's actually very simple geometry, just this two sets of spirals going the opposite way. But why is that sacred geometry? Well, the reason that someone would use the term sacred in conjunction with the word geometry is because it's it's partly because it's simple geometry, and it's more, it shows more what the I guess the building blocks would be of of like fields, or like um, the building blocks, the essences, whatever. The simpler geometries would show it better. It's not There's not all these different shapes going on, so you can see the basic building blocks better. So that's why someone would use the term sacred. You're kind of referring to, it's like a metaphysics kind of, um, you're putting the focus onto something metaphysical by using the term sacred. Technically, uh, every geometry would be sacred in the sense that it's made up of the same building blocks. So that's why I use that definition of sacred, is just to point out the simplicity of it. The actual, I think it's a pretty simple, um, more fundamental geometry, because, and here's why. The If you look at the geometry of like the electromagnetic fields, they are, it's kind of like they're orthogonal sets of circles. um, and that geometry, though the electric fields and the magnetic fields represent this basic geometry from 0 degrees and 90 degrees. Those are lines that go around the hypersphere, that make up the hypersphere, maybe. And this hypersphere, being stereographically projected as our reality, appears not as a sphere, but as a kind of a distorted set of circles that are orthogonal to each other. If you get one of the lines that are between 0 and 90 degrees, then on the hypersphere, it comes out to be what's called a loxodrome. And there's a range of angles between 0 and 90 degrees. And so there's a range of loxodromes at different angles, which translates to the spirals being at a different angle, basically. That's my basic interpretation of it. So you see a lot of spirals in nature, but the spirals aren't all exactly the same. But generally, this set of lines from 0 to 90 degrees and all the spirals in between, those I would say represent sacred geometry. So that's why you would identify the pine cone as representing sacred geometry. However, the third claim is a huge jump in logic to say that, well, because the pine cone represents sacred geometry, that it has some kind of special power. That's it almost contradicts the whole claim about sacred geometry. Because that claim about sacred geometry is kind of based on monism, and to say that there are abilities which are supernatural, to say that this thing here is sacred and that thing's not, or this thing has special powers and this doesn't, that's a dualistic mindset, and that goes against the idea of sacred geometry, and it goes against pretty much any authority you can think of. If you're someone who's convinced by a argument for authority. Yeah, so damn, people. Is it just me, or are things getting crazier out there? People, if again, when I criticize people, when I say that someone's dumb, or very, very dumb, or mentally retarded, it's kind of hyperbolic. It's kind of a joke, but every single time I do that, I give a long list of reasons. And actually, one of the reasons I make videos, I put myself out there, is because I wish that someone would make a video about what I say and call me dumb. I wish someone would call me dumb and then sit in front of the camera for half an hour explaining all the reasons why I was dumb. Because I don't want to keep talking about the same thing and find out later that I was wrong. I want to find out that I'm wrong right away. If I'm an idiot, I want to find out right away, as soon as possible, so I don't keep repeating idiot stuff. I don't know if I'm an idiot, but it's hard to find some. It's I think of criticisms for my own ideas, and I'm putting myself out there so that people can criticize me. I actually do want to have discussions about these things. So yeah. So I guess that's all I wanted to say. This has been Story Time with Eric. Thanks for watching. See ya some other time.